Primavera Avocados is back for the spring and summer season. Grown on a family ranch in Southern California since 1979, these avocados are hand-picked and delivered to your door in perfect condition. You can order a box or sign up for a subscription to save money. Each box includes 4 pounds or 8 to 10 avocados delivered to your door. Order at primaveraavocados.com, Primavera avocados.com. Use promo code TASTE at checkout to get 10% off your order. These avocados are only in season through July, so order now.
Thinking about, like, if I was to put a Korean recipe in, let me put in the recipe that all the kids grew up with. Let me put in the recipe when you wake up in the morning and you get that cartoon's whiff of smoke going through your nostrils, and when it's the Tak Toritang day, that's celebration.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. I had such a great time catching up with Roy Choi. He's, of course, the legendary chef and TV personality behind Kogi and so many other projects. He has a new book. It's called The Choi of Cooking, and it is really, really good. It's a philosophical approach to cooking healthfully, and also just tells a lot of great stories. And the recipes, there are no skips. I love how Roy thinks about food, and we go over so many topics in this great conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Roy Choi, welcome to This Is Taste. It's so great to talk to you. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm on the media tour, man.
Yeah, buddy.
Award tour.
Choi of Cooking, what an incredible book. It's full of big ideas, a great title, like straight up great title. Tell me a little bit about when you came up with that title. What was ultimately going to be your big promise with this book?
Well, it wasn't the first title. It came at the 11th hour after the team around me found the courage to tell me the first title was trash. And I'm glad I have a team that rallied to do that. The book started as a diet book. I had never dieted in my life, but I pitched it as a keto book, believe it or not. And then, because I had changed my eating habits and my lifestyle, everything was becoming extremely unsustainable, and I was gaining crazy weight, and not just that, feeling really lethargic and unhealthy, and I was going down a dark hole that had been going on for 3 decades, and so I finally made a change, and I thought that I could say something in this space because a lot of wellness and health doesn't speak to people like me, and my friends and people from neighborhoods that the Kogi truck, feeds and represents. And so started that way, but then it grew as we were writing it. And thanks to our editor, Jen Sitt, like, she helped us shape it into this philosophy book. I had never really had the courage or audacity to feel I could write a book with a philosophy of life behind it. But I finally reached a place where I thought that maybe I could, I had lived long enough. I had enough experience. The recipes that I've developed over the last 20 years were really tried and true. The flavors had reached, millions of people, and there are results behind it. So I kind of used that uh, ideology and thinking to give me confidence. And so the book has turned into, and now has always been, I guess, my philosophy of life.
Yeah.
And then so the title fits perfectly with that now.
Yeah, it's really full of your voice, and there's really nice, that breaks in the terrific recipes with some philosophy and just general thoughts about food and life. And I'm really curious, take us back to that when you talked about that dark period when you were feeling lethargic and gaining the weight. I think, honestly, many of our listeners can relate to that. That's just part of life, and it happens to many of us where we just aren't feeling great. I guess I know you can't summarize it in a soundbite, but what were you doing to your body, and what were you consuming that maybe wasn't the best idea at that moment?
Well, it's a little multifaceted in one aspect on the cook level, and many cooks out there will understand this. We spend all of our working hours cooking the most nutritious food and delicious foods, maybe 14, 15 different vegetables, We're prepping all those things to make mise en place. All the herbs that we're picking, the flowers, we're only using heritage breed meats, and we're tasting. The thing is, we're tasting all that food along the way for 12, 14 hours. But as soon as we clock out, like a cartoon, where we punch the clock and walk away from the site like the old sheepdog, um, we go right to fast food, candy, chips, chili burgers, chili dogs, milkshakes, um, pints of ice cream, ounces of weed, edibles by the handful, and we just like almost like inundate our body at a turbo rate, almost like a nitrous fuel can of just horrible stuff, just the worst stuff you could possibly think of. And that's where I was, man. That's what it, and then that combined with the lifestyle that I lived as outside of being a cook. The thing that kind of inspired this book, if you go all the way to the core of it, is my best friend died a few years ago, and a few years before he passed away, um, he had been, like us as guys, sometimes we have a hard time asking each other
How you
for
doing?
help.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, how you doing? Just how you doing, or
Exactly.
help,
Yeah, yeah.
or whatever. And but we throw hints at each other, and he was throwing me hints of like, hey, just can you create a meal plan for me, and I wasn't ready. My head wasn't there.
Mm.
I don't know if my life was at that point yet, and I feel like shit, man. I feel horrible. I know it's not my fault, but there is something I could have done,
Oh
and
man.
in a way, this book is a little bit of, if I could have done it, this is for him.
Oh man. I'm well. Thanks for sharing, Roy. And
Yeah,
I'm sorry that you went through that. I'm sorry for your friend's loss. And um, I can relate in that when big moments happen in your life, it just is a wake up call. And clearly, with the Choi of Cooking and what you put into this book, you've written that meal plan, and you've
yeah,
condensed some of these thoughts and really broadly speaking, the book is all over the place in the best possible way. Isn't a prescriptive diet. You're not saying eat this or don't eat that. It really just kind of seeps into the book's narrative. Tell us a little bit broadly about the recipes that are in this book.
yeah. I'm glad you picked up on all that. It's a wellness book. It's a health book, but it's the first step of that journey,
Yeah.
right? And no one talks about that first step sometimes, like because when you see wellness, when you see athleisure wear, you see
Hmm.
Erewhon smoothies, you see beautiful skin and influencers, and you see the gym workouts and all these things. They already look beautiful. You know what I'm saying? But what about when you're ugly? And what about like when you're ugly on the outside and on the inside, and you want to change but you don't know where to start, and you're still latched to the life that you're living, and you don't hate the life that you're living. You love ice cream, you love chili burgers, you love hot dogs, you know. Um, and then so this is about like, what's that first step like? How do I not be shamed for still eating the way that I eat, but make slight little tweaks, slight little adjustments and remixes a little bit so that I can still feel good, but
Yeah.
I can know that I'm heading in a different direction. And then I can start progressing and adding things to that. And I always equate it to like, if you want to start working out or getting some exercise, but you haven't exercised for a long time, maybe you start with just walking down the street. Then that walking down the street becomes halfway around the block. Then halfway around the block becomes 1 block. And then before you know, 1 block becomes a half a mile. And it's the same thing with eating and cooking. And that's what this book is all about. I, it starts at the start line, not the finish line.
Let me ask you broadly,
Mhm.
with this concept that you just laid out, and you're in those first innings of your kind of diet journey and your kind of course correcting. Is there something that you just are like, you should probably maybe eat less of this? I'm not going to say cut, because I don't think that's the vibe of this book, is to like restrict but what are you thinking about, like not leaning into food wise?
Well, I've been learning a lot too along the way, and in no way is this a nutritionist book. It's just it's a workshop book. You know, it's a garage band of nutrition. Um, but what I've learned along the way is that it's salt, sugar, carbohydrates. Substituting certain fats. Um, and looking at red meat.
Yep. Yep.
And then so it's like taking those 4 or 5 pillars and finding ways to still create flavor bombs, but adjust the quantity of the salt, the sugar, the carbs, and the fat. Find different ways to fill your sensation with flavor, and that's where this book and the recipes, you have a whole section devoted to flavor bombs.
Yep.
It's like create these kind of, and you see it in a lot of cooking, like Thai cooking, Korean cooking, on, right? Ethiopian cooking, like different dips and sauces, Laotian cooking. You have these like flavor bonds, especially Indian cooking, you know, and so it's all about kind of that. And the other part is snacking. Snacking is the tip of the arrow to a poisonous death, you know.
How do you avoid it, Roy? I mean,
So hard,
it's
man,
so
right?
we
It's
have to
so hard.
recognize it's not easy when like we need like there's so many great snacks. So many great snacks.
You have to train yourself, Matt, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
It's all about training because we've been trained. You got to think about it this way. And these are all things I learned in my own head as I was going through writing this book. We've all been trained by corporations and consumerism. Our body wasn't, we didn't come out of the womb craving red vines, and Doritos, and slowly, little by little, our body and our psychology and our mind is being trained to develop these as natural instincts and habits. And so what we have to do is we have to untrain those. We have to endure the pain of untraining it. And what I mean by that, there is a transition period where your mouth and your sensation has to get used to nuts versus chips, has to get used to fruit versus candy, has to get used to vegetables versus bread, vinegars versus salts, and you have to kind of like you have to that's the only difficult part, I think.
Hmm.
That's the only kind of laborious part of this transition because I went through it. So I'm speaking from like an experienced first person, like a journey of it is that I went through it too, man. I wanted to give up so many times and throw in the towel,
Yeah.
um,
Those red vines,
because
man, they're great. Like I love a good red
the
vine.
red vines, the chips,
Yeah.
uh the hot fudge sundaes, with the sea salt,
Yeah.
like all that is sitting there for you, and you have and the mouth feel, and you can just feel it, and
Yeah.
the porterhouse steak, the Peter Lugers with the grease, and all of that's there, but you have to train yourself.
How do you think about this age of protein then? Because we've there's so much data out there that protein rich diet is really helpful, nutrient rich, protein rich diet, but also thinking about lean proteins. I mean, are you counting macros for protein every day? Is that kind of part of your plan?
No, I don't count anything. Again, I take a kind of a chef's point of view.
Yeah.
Again, a garage band. I'm not doing the Philharmonic, and I'm not reading music or writing, doing Richard Wagner. I'm not doing that. It's just GarageBand, figuring it out, but using, there are other forms of intellect that we have in this universe, and it's using the intellect of sense, instinct, experience, muscle memory, um, and like kind of working through it. The one thing that helped me in this transition was I was a chef already, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't jumping into the pool completely cold. My body was already warmed up a little bit, and so then I could approach things on not a novice level, but I could bring my own experience into the decision making. With proteins, proteins are very important. So it's like the thing is though, it's just about quantity. And another thing I want to add to this whole kind of matrix is it's not about just giving up things like just going directly from chips to snack or to chips to nuts or whatever. That's a huge part of it, but it's also quantities. So when you are in the previous stage where you're eating chips and red vines and whatchamacallits and you know things like that, the thing is you're because you're kind of so conditioned and you're almost numb to all of this, what it's doing to you. The amount of stuff you're eating is way outside of the boundaries of what naturally us as animals should be eating.
Hmm.
And um and so as you make the transition, it's not that you can't eat meat, but you don't have to eat a 24-ounce cut of meat. But before you make that transition, it's very normal to eat a 24-ounce cut of meat. You know, it's very normal to eat a whole roast chicken, or to eat a big 16-ounce bone-in pork chop, but still have that meat or that protein, but maybe have 4 ounces, and mix it with all kinds of other things. The Chinese knew it way, thousands of years. I mean, look at the food of look at stir fry,
Yeah.
three,
Yeah.
4 ounces of meat and you don't miss anything,
Well, it's the
um,
flavor bombs you're talking about. It's making
it's the
sure
flavor
that
bombs
these little bits of protein, all these great vegetables, but it has to be interesting. It can't just be a monolithic flavor profile like ganjan or soy sauce. You need to do more with that, right? And that's what
or
you're
with
doing.
that.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
love it.
sometimes I mean, I'm American first, but being American, I feel like I have the right to criticize us too. Is the biggest fault that we have in our food and our cuisine sometimes is that we're not as interesting in separating the vegetable and the protein. And so
Well said.
we have we have to eat larger amounts of protein to satisfy us because the thing that lies on the other side of the plate is steamed broccoli or a piece of cauliflower or you know um, whatever the case may be,
Very, very unappetizing.
carrots,
Yeah,
unappetizing,
yeah,
and it's separated.
yeah.
It's separated, and and there's an element of you have to eat it versus you want to eat it versus going to Singapore or China or Thailand where it's all mixed together in the most interesting of ways, and you're not even thinking about the separation. You're thinking about the dish, and so that's what this book kind of touches on a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah,
And
yeah.
some of that, maybe from an American standpoint, is because it's so new, and even our country is new compared to those examples we just said, is taking an approach of not complicating it, but making it fun, mashing it up, doing remixes, making it so that it was like a drunk hookup. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No, and
you know,
the joy there is obvious. This philosophy that we just talked about, it's like that's the beat. That's like the baseline. That's like the production.
yes.
And then like the bars, the flow, the lyrics are your recipes. And I really love the way you think about recipes. And I want to ask you about a couple of them. Just like thinking, like for example, and this is the fun of the book is like you have a tribute to like the hotel omelet bar. And I think
Yeah.
it's a great entry point into like cooking with eggs and being interesting with eggs. But you have a long career before Kogi, cooking in hotels and like the omelet bar. And I'd love to hear about this idea and the recipe.
Oh, thanks for bringing that
Yeah,
recipe up.
it's cool.
Hotel chefs are some of the most disrespected chefs
Yes,
in our industry. We It's getting a little bit better now because hotels themselves there weren't boutique hotels before, so hotels and chefs weren't really attaching themselves, but now prime real estate is attached to hotels. So the whole genre is changing. But we used to be the butt of everyone's jokes. But if you look at an omelet station, it's probably whether you're at a country club, a brunch place, or a hotel, it's probably the purest form of mise en place. It's a station that's manned by one person that has to cook for maybe 700 people in a span of 1 hour.
incredible.
And yeah, and you have to customize every single dish. And you not only do you have to customize every single dish, you have to do it in a verbal way. There are no tickets. Um, everything is changed and customized, but it's also can be changed in the middle of the cooking process because someone's looking over and saying, "Oh, well, add more mushrooms," or "That's too much cheese. Can you take half of that cheese out?" And this is happening while you have seven omelets going, and so it really takes, I think, the highest form of muscle memory, mise en place, and but then also you have to have a smile on your face. A line cook getting a sub on a ticket in a kitchen that has no windows can mouth off, right?
Oh
But
yeah, you can curse
but
the diner
here,
all you want.
yeah, you could curse the diner all you want. So there's that part. I think there are related recipes in this book, the hotel omelet bar recipe and the big fucking salad recipe.
Yeah,
And those recipes are linked because they exist not only from a cooking and chef standpoint, but the other side of that, where you're not before I was a chef or before you're a cook. And it's the thing I love about those is that it's a little small window and pocket of freedom. You can do whatever you want in there. The salad bar salad, the big fucking salad, no one bothers you because the word salad makes it feel like it's healthy. But when you're a kid and you walk up to the salad bar, whether your mom is, over your shoulder, whether your life sucks right now, whether you just can't take people in your ear and you just want to shut the world out, they're like headphones. You go to the salad bar, no one bothers you, and you could put as much bacon bits as you want, as much corn as you want. You could put no lettuce if you don't want to. You could fill it with croutons. It doesn't matter. It's kind of your own domain. And the omelet bar is that way too, because it's breakfast, because it's considered somewhat healthy. Um, it's the first meal of the day in many
yeah.
cases. If you're a kid, your parent wants you to eat hearty and healthy. If you're yourself, an adult, it's like it gives you an excuse to figure things out, but it's like you can make it your own. And sometimes when you're eating at an omelet bar in a hotel, you may be on a business trip, you may be at a convention or something, and maybe at a job you hate, and maybe your whole life is a place where you don't have control over every single thing in your life. But the omelet bar, you got
Hmm.
control.
I
You know
love
what I mean?
that.
I'm
So
saying
it's that
like you
one
have
moment in the day. You're adding a little bit of broccoli and ham if you want. You're doing a
the
little
one
broccoli and
moment of the day, yeah, you could be like, this is yours.
ham.
It's yours. It's your creation, with
Yeah,
this person one on one, and it feels like jazz,
it's fun.
and that's it.
It's fun. I really like this recipe. You have an incredible recipe for a homemade sweet chili sauce, which I think
Yeah.
our shared friend Daniel Holzman and I did a recipe for that one time. And you got to make your own chili sauce, and this is a great recipe. You don't just make the chili sauce, which you can use for many other types of cooking and cooking with vegetables and all that, but you add it to a peanut butter sandwich. Never thought about that, Roy. That's really I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Thank you. That's yeah. That sauce is called Sweet Child of Mine after Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's a big philosophy in that recipe. And it's kind of hidden in the context of the caption, but it's because again, if we want to get people to cook more, sometimes everything can't be from scratch. And we as chefs and as foodies and as connoisseurs and as food writers and as whatever, right? We're always like romanticizing and putting a lot of weight on, farm to table, head to toe, from scratch, by hand, artisan. And those are wonderful things. Don't get me wrong. They're important things that are the cornerstone of all of us in the industry. But if someone's not cooking already, that's a lot to take on,
yeah.
and that might throw people off or push people away. So sometimes we need recipes that start halfway in, kind of like fast forwarding through like a movie or something to get to the good parts,
Yeah.
and so like this recipe starts with stuff that already exists, bottles of sauces, srirachas, this and that. And sometimes we shun that way of cooking, but a sauce doesn't have to all be from scratch. It can be 50% already great sauces that are out there. And then you add a bunch of herbs and aromatics and gingers and galangal and all these things. And then you're just amping it. And what I'm saying is it starts with a mayploy. And then it has sriracha and chili garlic sauce and I think oyster sauce or hoisin sauce, fish sauce. It has all these things that are already built on their own. Um, and then you have to get past your ego and your
Hmm.
insecurity of like, oh, like I'm not creating a recipe. Ah, fuck that. And then you just add a bunch of aromatics to it and you puree it together. Then you have something that is already great that has become greater.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
and then that's sauce reminded me of like we as like Asian kids didn't grow up with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So, but then when I made this sauce and I tasted it, it tasted like jelly. It tasted like maybe if I had grown up with jelly or jam, that this is what jelly or jam would be like. Because all my food was already spicy and filled with garlic and ginger, anyways. So why wouldn't our jams be filled with garlic, ginger, and herbs? So then that became that. Then it was like, okay, if I kind of created like an alternate version of myself, right? And then it was like, so then if I did grow up with jam and jellies and I did grow up with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, what would that peanut butter and jelly sandwich look like? So then it became a grilled cheese peanut butter banana sandwich with chili jam
Oh,
on
buddy.
on toasted
So good.
sourdough.
On
Yeah,
sourdough, that's
yeah,
the clincher is like
yeah,
a little bit of a
yeah.
sourdough. Roy, I want to ask you about dakdori tang. There's obviously going to be some Korean recipes in this book, and I love that you picked this one. It's one of my all-time favorite stews, and your sauce mix has some unique elements which I haven't quite seen myself. It's like definitely a Roy recipe. You've got kiwi and Asian pear, garlic soy sauce, gochujang, oyster sauce, and this spicy chicken stew. Why did dakdori tang? Why did that make the cut for a Korean recipe in this book?
Korean food has become, I mean, you've written two books on
Yeah,
it. Korean food has become so popular. We as Korean kids would have never imagined it. Um, it's a food that is so bizarre to the Western palate, and now that is so ubiquitous, it's so strange because our food is not linear. It's not eaten in a progressive format. It all comes at once, and it's all separated into these different things, and there are multiple things. Like if you think of a Western meal, there's one entree, but what if you had seven entrees?
yeah.
That's how a Korean meal is served, and there are certain things that I never suspected to be the things that kind of stick their head out that have defined Korean food around the world, like sundubu and certain barbecues and things like that. But one of the best dishes we have is taktoritan, and I can't believe that it hasn't like risen to the level of sundubu,
For
or hasn't.
sure. Agree fully. Fully agree.
Yeah, yeah, or the level of seollamtang, or
So
the level
yeah,
of even now, gopchang is like very popular.
yeah.
Like
People are lining up in New York for gopchang. Like there's
for
like
gopchang,
yeah.
how the fuck does gopchang beat taktoritan? You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yes.
like, so I was just like thinking about like if I was to put a Korean recipe in, let me put in the recipe that all the kids grew up with. Let me put in the recipe that
Yeah.
really, when you wake up in the morning and you get that cartoon whiff of smoke going through your nostrils. Like what is every kid wakes up in the morning, coming out of their bed, like, and when it's the Tak Tang day, that's like that's celebration. That's
Yeah.
Macy's Thanksgiving Parade Day,
Hmm.
and that happens like maybe 5 to 7 times a year,
Yeah.
if you're lucky, and you can count those days, and those days are imprinted
Hmm.
and embossed embalmed in you. And I just felt like I wanted to create that recipe to share so that maybe if people start making it, that they could have that imprinted in them as well.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? You know?
Foley and listener, pick up this book and there's so many recipes, but just for the DDT recipe, it's easy to put together. You're using a blender to make the sauce, and to be clear, it's a spicy chicken stew. It's got
Yeah.
incredible balance with a lot of vegetables in it. You can add some rice too if you like. I mean, it's really like we love chicken stews in America. Like there's a lot of them, and
Yeah, and if we position it correctly, it's really like a crock pot dish, you know.
Absolutely.
If we can get the right narrative behind it and the right storytelling behind it, and that was a part of it too, because I want people to eat more taktoritan.
Yeah.
I want kids 100 years from now that aren't Korean waking up in the morning and smelling taktoritan,
Yeah.
because I know that those memories for me are are extremely influential and valuable, you know. And again, going back to philosophy, if I'm sharing my philosophy, you're also sharing your nuances and your touch points so that others can take those touch points, apply them to their lives or their children or their next generations, and um, and then start to develop their own philosophies of life. And this from a food standpoint is a big one for me.
Oh, I have to just have a follow up about Korean cuisine in America. When when Dookie and I wrote our first book, Koreatown, we were working on it in like 2013. I mean, Roy, you were the an impetus to start thinking about Korean American cuisine with Kogi and all the work you'd done in LA. So you really are the tip of the spear for this growth that you talk about. I mean, I haven't had you on the show. We've talked a little offline, but like, how do you feel personally about this rise? And now just it's not going anywhere, my friends. Like, Korean food
Yeah.
is American food, and the entrepreneurship at the restaurant level in literally every major city is apparent, and it's super exciting to me personally. I'd love to hear from you.
You know, when we started Kogi, we never had the intention of doing that, and maybe that's why, for me, it means so much, because we don't want any credit for it, and we didn't intend to have any credit for it. But sometimes when you are at a place, or when you do something that is completely free and pure, it has a more powerful echo effect, because you're not trying to force it, or you're not trying to control it. It was meant to be, you know, it spiritually was meant to be. And, you know, I had seen the decades where Korean food was completely foreign, or shunned, or ridiculed and laughed at. And you're talking about possibly 4 decades of that: 70s, 80s, 90s to early 2000s, where this food was treated like like you were eating dog food, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and then to see it completely turn, and then on the other side of that, the Korean culture and country itself was also not doing the best way of marketing. Like, the government wasn't doing the best way of marketing the food all through those periods. It was they were too precious with it. They were too um, they were promoting the wrong things, like bibimbap and stuff
Yeah.
like that. They were using the wrong slogans. It's a beautiful thing, man, to see people eating Korean food at this level and at this magnitude, because it's delicious food, and it's a food that translates from home to public restaurant and the streets. All It's all the same food, you know. So it doesn't have to put on a tuxedo from one place to the other. It can go to the party in a t-shirt and jeans, you
Yep.
know, across the board, you know. And it's the Brad Pitt of food. It could wear like jeans and a
Oh yeah.
t-shirt to the Met Gala, you know, and it could, and people accept it for what it just needed the breakthrough for people to see it for what it was. Um, and if Kogi had a little part to do with that, I'm just so happy, and I just it, I'm just so happy, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm running out of words,
No,
because I'm
you've
so happy, you
yeah,
know, to
yeah.
see people eating it, you know.
Yeah, and really, in your first book, which is so terrific, Ellie's Son, you write a lot about the early days in restaurants in like Western and like some of the mom and pops, and never to forget those places. They're still there too. I think in LA, Koreatown, there's the buzzy places, of
Yeah.
course, but then you got so many mom and pops still doing the work. I love your city. I love LA Koreatown. It's such a special place.
But what we needed to do, Matt, I think I found what I was trying to say is what we needed to do is in order for Korean food to have made that transition, we had to kind of like we had to kind of disrespect it a little bit. We had to kind of like take it out of its protective kind of shell, and we had to like add. That's why the taco worked so well. Or we had to add the cultural elements of the second generation and third generation to it. You know, of of the perspective and the flavor and the feeling of a kid that didn't grow up in Korea. Because my food's not Korean.
Hmm.
You know, my food is Korean American. You know, and it had to have that piece added to it, and it took that long um, for a lot of us, kind of first wave of immigrant kids, to get old enough and have the experience enough to be able to, you know, put something out in the universe.
And just
And
the hard work that went
yeah,
into it, and it's built into Korean culture, built on hard work.
yeah, and it needed to like feel like young and American and like
Yeah, yeah,
be a be like understandable. And that's kind of was the tip of the spear, as you say. And then it just spilled,
yeah, yeah.
and then everyone started messing around with it, cooking things, you know, and I think we're still as ubiquitous as it is now. I think we're still only in like the first kind of quarter of it.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, I think that there's like really long legs to it, and in the next 20 years, we're in 2025 right now. If you and I are still around in 2045 doing this interview,
Hmm.
again, we can look back and like probably Korean food will it will be. I mean, look at Thai food and
Yeah,
Cantonese dim sum.
yeah,
You know how it's become just like the same language. It's almost English. You know,
yeah. I'm putting that on the
in
cal. I'm
in
put I'm,
language.
I'm putting
Put
that
it on the
interview on the
calendar.
calendar.
Yeah,
It's on the calendar for 45. We're doing
April
it.
10th. Yeah,
Yeah,
April 10th, 2045.
45. We're doing it. A couple other recipe ideas that you bring that are really smart. I absolutely love your shrimp toast technique, because I think shrimp toast is such a grail from the restaurant side. We've had it everywhere, and I think it's beloved because it's such a cool idea and mix of umami and acidity. But of course, you've got this fry technique. You know, this it's got really unctuous. I hate I use that word, but you know what I mean. It's like very rich. Um, what's your technique though? Because you've simplified it in a way. I love it.
Thank you. I think this is a good segue or bridge into what we just talked about regarding making Korean food feel American, right? And breaking it down. So the thing is, the shrimp toast, I thought about the dumpling,
Hmm.
right? And the dumpling, everyone loves dumplings, but the dumpling is still very Asian. It requires chopsticks. It squirts out when you eat it. It requires a dough that not many people know how to make. You can't really go to places that aren't specializing in dumplings and have a good dumpling, you know. And I don't think a lot of non-Asian people have figured out how to make dumplings yet, right?
Yeah,
You
totally.
know, like there's a lot of fusion restaurants out there where they're cooking, you know, like non-Asian chefs are cooking really good interpretations of Asian food, but I haven't had one where they're making a good dumpling. And so the dumpling is still in this like really weird space. But then I thought about like, what if the dumpling was a sandwich? You know, and then that led me to like shrimp toast, and then really shrimp toast is at the end of the day, it's a sandwich.
Yep.
And and so it was like that whole kind of like vortex of thinking was like swirling around, and then it was like, okay, um shrimp toast, but make it a sandwich, but make it a dumpling. And then that's this recipe.
Yeah, it's a really really smart way, and you can just make it as a sandwich as you would on a flat top with a little bit of butter on it, and you're making your shrimp filling. Just
Hmm.
lovely idea. Um,
Yeah, it's just a grilled cheese sandwich, but
yeah.
as a dumpling.
Yep. 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 One more thing that you brought up to close this interview, and I think it needs to be said this explicitly, is that you just smashed this idea about cooking with neutral oil over sesame oil, and this idea that you can't cook with sesame oil as your primary oil. Like it's gonna burn, it's gonna make it acrid. I mean, I love that you're just like wrote about this, Roy.
Oh yeah, I could be totally wrong, but my defense and my the leg that I stand on is that I do it,
Yeah,
and the food tastes fucking bomb.
yeah,
You know, and so just to give all you listeners context is people always told me, and it's like a given uh, philosophy out there in the cooking world that you
trope.
can't cook with delicate oils, right? Because their burn point is too low. You know, that's the science, quote unquote science behind it. And you can't cook with extra virgin olive oil, first press. And you can't cook with sesame oil because their burn points are too low and you're going to burn it and it's becoming bitter and you're going to ruin your food. You know, and that's like being like shoveled down your throat as far as like information goes. And I'm like, all right, I already break rules anyways, and I already don't listen to fucking people anyways. So why don't I just cook the way I want to cook? And I've been cooking this way for a long time. And a lot of people have been eating it this way and they're not complaining. You know what I'm saying? Like I cook with sesame oil. I start with sesame oil on high flame in a wok, you know, and I burn the shit out of that motherfucker, you know. I burn the shit out of that oil and I add the ginger garlic scallions and I add um, all these things, you know, the water spinach and the Chinese broccoli and the cuts of pork and then all the sauces and I mix that together or when I start my fried rice or whatever the case may be, or if I'm making kimchi jjigae or things like that and I'm gonna start with the pork belly, I start with sesame oil. I don't
Yeah,
start with the neutral oil. And I haven't experienced it, man.
yeah.
I haven't experienced the burnt, bitter, whatever. And if there is a burnt, bitter flavor, it only makes the flavor of that dish better. So that's what this little kind of chapter like philosophy thing is all about is like don't listen to anybody, man. Just cook it and taste it and if it tastes good, that should be good enough,
I
you know?
think you've laid it out very clearly. I mean, especially as a home cook, if you're adding like 3 to 4 cups of vegetables and then
Uh-huh.
a small amount of protein, you really need that flavor. And when you're cooking with sesame oil, you're making a choice. Like it's a
Yeah.
direction. You're not like it's like pumping the brakes on sesame oil when you're making that choice is a problem. Like to commit to the sesame oil, saute with it, season with it, maybe have 2 sesame oils go first press if you have a great Asian market or you live in a city you can
Yeah.
get really nice stuff. But like use like you can buy the stuff at H Mart to cook with. I agree. We align philosophically about cooking in the wok with sesame. I just don't like. Why would you hold back? That's the
Why
question.
would you hold back? And
Yeah.
sometimes there are things that are these like mythical folklore fairy tales or fallacies that we think are true, and maybe they're not true. Like carrots being good for your eyes, right?
Yeah.
Like
All
maybe
right.
that maybe they're not true. You just have to test them out, you know? Like I don't know who came up with that, but it's like the Constitution and like how politicians always refer to the Constitution. Maybe like shit needs to like be adapted, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like maybe we need to look at it and be like and not be so fucking stringent on things because it was written like 300 years ago. Like maybe someone whoever said that putting sesame oil in a pan and it burns and tastes bitter was someone that had a horrible fucking palate,
Yeah.
you know, and and somehow we took that as law, and I'm just trying to debunk
May,
that
may, may I
in my
dare
own.
even say? May I dare even say? Maybe they're not even Asian. The
You say that.
I'll
You say it. I won't say it. Yeah,
perhaps
that's what.
it might be coming from like a food scientist background that maybe isn't cooking all the time with East Asian, the flavors
That's
of East Asia.
exactly how it happened,
Yeah,
Matt.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if we're being real,
We're
that's
being real.
exactly how it happened.
And you could give me this like the best idea for an article or even something longer is like cooking amendments. I mean, the Constitution is amended for a reason. So let's make some amendments to these ideas. And cooking with sesame oil is like maybe in over a hot flame. That's an amendment. Let's just make
This is the fucking rock we stand on.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's true. It's like not even an amendment because this is like the Constitution in parts of Asia is like it's like in law. Like you can cook sesame oil over a high flame. Like
We're removing an amendment and adding a new one.
yeah,
And
we're.
this is a new law.
I follow that. I like this metaphor. We went there. On This Is
Uh-huh.
Taste, we ask guests about their discerning tastes. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The best fruit.
It's got to be a strawberry, right? It's the most like
Whoa.
the most. I don't have to give just one word answers. Right? I can just go
No.
fast.
You can say some things. Say
The,
something.
the 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 most important fruit in the world is the coconut because just the role it plays
Yeah.
in civilizations, and how it's used. But in popular culture today, it has to be the strawberry.
You got some good ones out there on the West Coast, I must say.
Yeah, the Erewhon strawberry. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
but the Harry's berries.
Those
But
are
beyond that, yeah, we have
beyond
really
that.
good strawberries.
Yeah. The worst vegetable.
I have to say spaghetti squash.
Yeah.
Everyone has been trying to tell me how good spaghetti squash. I go to restaurants and everyone's trying to do spaghetti squash and everyone's talking about how innovative it is and what you can do with it and like people lose their shit over spaghetti squash, but I think it's a fucking horrible vegetable.
Yeah, we align. We align. What is your typical breakfast?
It's evolved ever since I wrote this book.
Yeah, I bet.
It used to be my biggest meal. It
Yeah.
used to be jigaes and kaibitangs and big bowls of rice and panchans and kims and kimchis and bacon and spam and eggs. Now it's a bowl of granola, fruit, maybe a salad, very Japanese,
Mhm.
maybe a light salad, um, maybe a soft boiled egg. If it's a protein, it might be a little fish, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my breakfast
That's
now.
great. What's the best
Mhm.
dessert?
It's got to be a hot fudge sundae.
Are you making it
Go
or are you
go
going?
go against the hot fudge sundae with anything.
Are you
You
making
could
it
write a
or
book.
is it Yeah.
You can make it, but there are places that serve extremely,
Yeah.
great hot fudge sundaes from chain restaurants like Houston's to
Mhm.
even the Ghirardelli's, to like chef-driven restaurants, Haagen-Dazs in a cup. It doesn't matter, or you make it yourself. But take a perfectly balanced hot fudge sundae, everything at its right temperature with the right amount of crunch and salt and all these things to it. That could stand like on a rock against a storm of a million other desserts coming at it. And I think it will be the last one standing.
So correct. And really what dessert is best at the last bite? Name a dessert.
Name a dessert that can beat the last bite of a hot fudge sundae.
Agree. That's
And
it.
this is just my opinion, but
That's it.
yes.
No, this is the first time it's actually appeared on. We asked this question to everybody, and it's the first time. And you have a case. You have a case. It's a
Okay,
really
thank you. Thank you.
really good one. All right. Is there a restaurant you wish you could bring back from the dead?
In your email, you said you missed A-Frame.
Yeah.
A-Frame is a restaurant that I had from 2010 to about 2018, and I miss that place so much. I really do. I miss the food. I miss the vibe. I missed where it was at the time of where food dining was at. Um,
Yeah.
we were at a juncture where we didn't mean to, again, like Kogi with Korean food, we didn't mean to introduce a lot of these things, but we introduced bass and subwoofers to restaurants.
You
Um,
did.
we introduced like eating with your hands. We introduced communal seating, but not at a long table, like at small tables where you put strangers together at a foretop. You know, and these are all things that are normal now, and but they were experimental back then.
Hmm.
And sometimes we speak of experimental cooking as the cooking part, but this was experimental in the experiential part, and I miss that.
Yeah. I think my colleague Gina and I were talking about it earlier, and she grew up in LA, and we were just talking about such an influential restaurant. And it's such a good point. It's like the style of service, obviously the space, this
Mhm.
incredible A-frame space, but also in Culver City. But like it was special.
Thank you.
Would you ever reboot it in some way, or is it a time and place for you?
Oh, the recipes are still good.
Yeah, they
I
are.
cook them. I cook them from time to time.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah,
I would like to. And I know any chef that's listening, our restaurants exist with us forever. It may not be easy to understand, but we could bring a restaurant back from the dead, because it's never dead within us, you know? I know like society likes to put bookends on things, but for us, a restaurant going under doesn't mean that it's over or that it failed. It's just it's just not there anymore. But even 15 years later, if we were to bring it back, like it's like it was yesterday, you know. So yeah, I'm just looking for that right moment.
it's maybe one day it'll happen. I really
Yeah,
hope it does. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
I would say Tijuana.
Mm-hmm.
I just went there recently, and the food is so incredible, man. It's so incredible.
Yeah,
But Tijuana.
it's good city to reference. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
I have a version of it in the Choi of Cooking.
Yeah.
It's a veggie sprout sandwich. Believe it or not, that's my favorite sandwich. Um, it, that sandwich done right, I think, gives you all the feels. It if you get a really great veggie sandwich with a really amazing spread, uh, and the sprouts and the crisp vegetables and a really great, inside great pieces of bread. It gives you all the feels of a meat sandwich. It's very fulfilling and satisfying, and the flavors are bouncing all over the place. But when you're done with it, you also feel extremely good,
Yep.
and strong and light. Um, and so for me, it's a really well made veggie sprout sandwich, not like a roasted veggie sandwich. Fuck those, like
Truly, fuck
yeah,
those.
yeah, fuck
Truly,
those.
say it twice. Fuck those. Not a
This
good
is
hang. No
This
one
is like
wants.
like cheese, cucumber,
Yeah, yeah,
tomato,
yeah, yeah.
sprouts, that kind of
It's
sandwich.
so good. Roy Choi, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Oh man, thank you, man.
This Is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.